everyone. Welcome to Dr. Quack House Calls. I'm Dr. Quack, and today we have a special interview with a man who has been around the pro wrestling business and has now gone into acting, moving up in the world there. I'm bringing him on, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Lovett.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be on. I always enjoy it.
Definitely. Always awesome to have you. I want to get started with something here real quick, though, because a lot of people don't know you were involved in the UWF.
Yes, well, I am involved in a potential relaunch of the UWF.
Really?
Yes, sir. Not in the original back in like 1990 because I was like 12, so I wasn't quite old enough to get involved. But I was a big fan of it. I grew up in the 80s, and we grew up. Seems like I remember you're close to my age, but we grew up in the 80s, and we had that tremendous option of having like 3 national level wrestling promotions with the WWF at the time and the NWA, more prominently Jim Crockett Promotions, and the AWA. And as the 80s started rolling into the 90s, the AWA started fading away. And as a young fan, I wanted to get back to that option of having that third national level promotion so bad. And, in searching around, there was the UWF. And, they had some big names that I was familiar with. And, that was great. And, of course, the wheels kind of fell off with everything the way it happened. But, as the years went on, I got involved with professional wrestling locally in Tennessee, had a few small runs, and, nothing ever played out. But, after I got into the film industry, wrestling started taking notice. And, out of nowhere, just a couple of years ago, I was contacted by one of the alumni of the UWF, Wild Thing Steve Ray.
Mm-hmm.
And, he contacted me if I would like to get involved with the brand. And, I said, sure, that would be awesome. So yeah.
Now, you watched this back when you were a teen, when you were in your teens there. What did you think about the UWF, like in comparison to when you saw the other territories?
Well, it was very different, but that's what I liked about it. It had great production at the time, which may well have been handled by ESPN at the time. I'm not sure, because all of the graphics of the wrestling that aired on ESPN at the time was very similar. Whether it was GWF or AWA or the UWF, whatever, all it was really similar. So I'm not sure if they weren't the ones heading up the television production, but it was just different. It was just a different taste, a different feel, and that's really what drew me to it.
Okay. Now, have you gotten to meet and work with Herb Abrams at all, or?
No, Herb Abrams passed away years ago.
Well, yes, he did. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It happens. I have worked with Wild Thing Steve Ray. He came down to Tennessee, and we met. We talked business, and he came down and shot a film with me. He shot the Last Passage, which is a faith-based film.
Mm-hmm.
By Timeless Dreams Productions and director Linda Lee, and I played God, he played the devil. We just had a tremendous chemistry, and so yeah, we did work together a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you've worked a lot with Timeless Dreams Productions. You've done a lot of films, including The Soldier's Secret. That's actually been out on quite a few platforms lately.
Yes, sir. It's hitting the streaming scene, and so yeah, I'm getting a lot of exposure there with that one. In that one, I played the down on his luck military veteran Josh Sweeting, and my character kind of leads the main character back to the real world. The real character, Jackson Harlow, the main character Jackson Harlow. He's home from the war. He's experiencing the PTSD stuff, and my character kind of helps guide him back into society. So yeah, that one was a lot of fun. It was touching to be involved, actually.
Okay. Was there any kind of like rituals that you do before you go into acting, or like things that you have to do to mentally prepare yourself to do these roles?
I look at other people who have had success with similar roles, and try to talk to people who have experienced this in real life to be able to relate to it.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was a great film. I actually sat down and watched it. It was on Tubi there, and I believe you said it was coming back.
Yes, it has. Yeah, I believe it's back on Tubi right now, and maybe on Hulu as well. I believe. Yes. The lead actor, he went out to California. He hosted some kind of a film festival out there,
Mhm.
and I think because of that and the exposure it was getting, they kind of wanted to get it back there in the public eye, and enjoy that exposure, so to speak.
Okay. And you also have the abduction of Marilyn Rose. Walk me through what that was about.
The Abduction of Emmeline Rose is an independent film, again, by Timeless Dreams Productions and director Linda Lee, and it's trying to bring attention to the almost epidemic of human trafficking that's going on in the world right now. So my wife and I play the heels. Almost always I'm cast as the heel. I don't know why that is, but I'm always the bad guy. And so yeah, we in the film we abducted a young girl, and then the family, the father and the mother. There's strife between them as they're trying to get everything going, working with the police department and everything. And so it touches on that stress and all of that goes on with that human trafficking that goes on in the world right now.
Okay. How many films have you been a part of?
Oh, between everything, between small roles and large roles, it's been around 50 productions now.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
impressive.
thank you. And I can't take credit for any of that, at all. I walked on the first film set, which was, I think, an episode of Nashville when they were broadcasting on CMT, not really knowing what the hell I was doing at the time as an actor. I mean, I'd had a little time in local professional wrestling, but that was my first film set. But they were very encouraging about my performance, even though I was just an extra, and they actually wound up using my shot, which when you're new, that's a tremendous honor because they don't use everybody's shot as far as the extras. They shoot tons and tons of shots and they use the best one, but or whichever one they like, and they actually used mine, so I was really honored.
Okay. I'm kind of curious. How is your relationship with Linda Lee? I mean, does that work pretty well, or?
It does. It does. We have a very good business relationship. It's not uncommon for her to come to me for a role.
That's always awesome. Is she fairly easy to work with?
Yes, totally. One of the easiest I've ever worked with in film. Probably the easiest.
Okay. That's always a good thing. Um, so we just saw that the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers' Strike finally came to a close. What was that like for that few months? Did that affect you at all?
I mean, it didn't really because I'm not in the guild. I think one of the actors I worked with early on added me to the Tennessee Guild, but I'm pretty much independently represented. So any kind of a strike didn't really affect me. Other than obviously the work wasn't going to be available as much, but I mean, I managed to keep rolling.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about that part right there with the Screen Actors Guild and things like that, is it difficult really to get a part of that?
I personally, I think it's just like wrestling. It's a matter of who you know, who your connections are. With the private clubs, so to speak, in the world that lead to wealth and success. Just personally, I believe they won't just let anybody in. Maybe that has the potential. Because I mean, if I make $1 billion and retire, then my family is going to live off the interest and graduate from the workforce forever. And I don't know that they'll just let anybody in that door. I don't know for sure, but I mean, if everybody makes $1 million and retires, then the workforce is gone. So That's how it feels anyway.
I understand that. You know, a lot of people talk to me and they go about today's movies. They feel like they're either remakes or poorly written. How do you feel about that? Like when you see today's movies versus, let's say, 20 years ago?
Right. Well, the reality of that is that I've just turned 47 years old, and I don't necessarily represent the demographic anymore.
Right.
So, right. So, I have to accept that. The audience out there that they're marketing to is like pretty much the 18 to 28. The younger audience, and there's not a lot of representation out there for my generation, for our generation. That's something I have to accept. But honestly, the newer films, they don't hit me like the originals. But again, I'm outside the demographic, and the target audience, probably does relate to that. But that's just something I have to accept as an actor and as a human and as an American.
And this was something that kind of got me. Now I'm talking about a specific film here. They had Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's just now came out on Peacock, and I seen where it was Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 3%, but yet the viewership gave it a 50%.
Okay, well, again, that's just hey, the critics are such a small portion of the audience,
Right.
and their decisions aren't always based on what our thought of a film is. There have been films that the critics raved about them, but they didn't really do well at the box office.
Right.
And it's just different motivation for the critics, I think, than it is for the ticket buyers. Personally, a horror version of Winnie the Pooh is not exactly my taste,
Right.
But I think they're just trying to think outside the box with it. I haven't seen it. I don't really plan to.
I can tell you from what I saw of it, it is definitely thrown together. I think if it had a bigger budget, like if a major motion picture association or somebody would have picked it up, it might have done differently.
I got you. I mean, I've been kind of pushing for a remake of Fireproof, where the bride pushes to save the marriage, but they're never going to go for that. So
right. But I want to switch gears here because I want to talk about the current product in professional wrestling, Endeavor, TKO, whatever you want to call them, buying out the WWE. What are your thoughts on that with Vince McMahon now leaving the professional wrestling world and it being ran basically by UFC?
It caught me as a shock. It caught me as a shock, man. I know everything's going on, behind the scenes, and the stuff probably behind it, and I understand it, but I'm taken back to the mid-90s when I think Ted Turner made a serious effort to acquire the company. And, they came forward and said no, and Todd Pettengill was out there saying the World Wrestling Federation is not for sale. And, here we are, and now it's been sold. So I'm just, wondering what that drastic change was. Again, I understand it. But, at a time, they were very adamantly against ever selling it.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy just to hear that. I mean, because, of course, with business, when you have two businesses merge, a lot of people get cut. And you've seen about 15 wrestlers get knocked off the roster there. Do you think they end up going to AEW, or do you think they go back to the Indies or maybe retire?
I think some will entertain all options. Hopefully they still find employment if they still want to go. But, anytime a company gets bought, usually they're going to make some cuts just to try to make up for that, that major purchase that they just made.
Okay. Now, I got one more question about this because, you're an old school wrestling guy like me. You love the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. How does that compare to today? What do you see in major differences?
Well, again, there was less wrestling on television back then. And, so that kind of kept it fresher. And, of course, we grew up in the Attitude, or not grew up, but we experienced the Attitude Era. with the Shop TV version of wrestling and everything, and all of that would probably get everybody thrown off television now doing a lot of the stuff they did then. So it is a bit of a more sensitive audience now, but that's just a reflection of the changes in the world that we live in. That's the main thing, is just the world has changed, and so the entertainment is going to change to reflect that.
Yeah, I mean, because you've been a manager before, you've been a general manager on screen. I mean, with that whole situation that's going on today, does that actually make you change your gimmick up, like to cater towards the audience?
It does now. Now, granted, my wrestling days, that was like end of the Attitude Era, beginning of the ruthless aggression era, and you could still get away with some stuff with the audience now. But as I became a manager and general manager, the audience had changed, so I kind of had to evolve along with it.
That makes a lot of sense. So what's next for you? Like, what is the next endeavor for you as far as movies go?
I've got another one coming up with Linda Lee. It's I can't really go into it a lot.
Okay.
But she approached me a few weeks ago, and it's a gentleman's story that he wanted to put together. We're gonna see if it happens. And of course, the UWF thing is still rolling. So we're gonna see where that goes, and you just keep pushing along.
Okay. Well, that's our episode here. Thank you, Michael, for coming on here. Definitely make sure you check out the movies that are coming up: Soldier Secret, Abduction of Emily and Rose. There, The Last Passage. I'm sure the last one's going to be coming out on Tubi, I would imagine, and Roku eventually.
Probably, yes, sir.
Yeah, so you'll be able to see them on a lot of streaming services. Make sure you take a look out there. Thank you again, Michael, for coming on. I'm Dr. Quack, and my next guest will be here on Monday by the name of Johnny Blade. We're going to talk some Southern wrestling down in Texas. So make sure you tune in, and I'll see you next time.